From the Emerald City, it's the DigiGods. Now please welcome Dorothy and Toto, Wade Major, and Mark Kaiser.
Thank you, Corey. And to whom do we owe that now judiciously edited once submission?
That was brought to you by friend of Dorothy, Chevelle Dixon.
Thank you, Chevelle. So we got a full show this week. Mostly a ton of classic stuff, classic old movies, classics.
That's good.
Classic
I like
Hollywood
old movies.
stuff. It's this is one of the we should talk about this a little bit, but this is one of the things I found reassuring about the whole recent trend in DVD and Blu-ray, which we've talked about with companies like Twilight Time and Olive and Shout Factory, that they're just kind of mining the libraries of the studios and putting the stuff out there that the studios aren't interested in touching. And we're not getting necessarily the restoration or the transfer work that we might hope, because in some cases the elements just aren't in great condition. But at least it's getting out there.
Yeah,
people
absolutely.
are able to. I mean, I'd rather have one of these westerns, these Jimmy Stewart westerns that no one's ever going to pay attention to. You know what? Maybe it's scratchy. Maybe there's a little bit of color shifting in the print. But I'd rather have it than not.
Look, Terms of Endearment.
Yeah.
He won Best Picture.
Yeah.
Paramount couldn't care less.
I know.
He had
It's weird.
Who was it? Twilight Time or whoever it was farmed it out. It's crazy.
I know. Nuts.
It's really sad. It's become such a bottom line business now.
The other interesting thing too, though, and we've got one of these this week, and I'll talk about it when we come to it, is that because Twilight Time and Olive and whoever else there is doing the Shout Factory, because they are enjoying success with some of these releases, when the rights revert. And these are all very limited, limited window deals. That's why a lot of them are, that's why Twilight Time only makes, 3,000 or 5,000 or whatever number of copies, is that those rights will eventually revert back. And in some cases, they're like, wow, there really is a market, and then they'll do their own. And so people who didn't get one of those limited release copies, they get it again. So... And we got one of those this week.
We do.
We do indeed.
I think part of the issue, too, with some of these for the studios is that obviously the studios like Sony also do things like make televisions.
Yes.
And some of these smaller films, they don't motivate people to upgrade their televisions.
No, they don't.
They don't motivate people to buy the latest Blu-ray player. So to them, it's like, well, if no one's going to buy it and it doesn't motivate people to upgrade other equipment, what's the point?
So, Mark, new movies this week. We got a big one here.
We do?
We do.
We have a big one, all right.
We got a big one.
I have
we
a big
got
one right here.
The big release this week, right here.
What is it?
Insidious Chapter 3. Insidious Chapter 3. This is the big release this week.
It is?
Isn't it?
See, to you, what I'm holding in my hand is not the big release. It's the fact that we actually have it in our hands.
Yeah.
That was a little sexual, but what I'm saying is
about...
it's not the movie. It's not the fact that the movie's out on Blu-ray. It's the fact that we are actually holding the Blu-ray in our hands,
and
which is unprecedented.
What movie is that?
It would be a Marvel film.
Yeah.
And it would be Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Anyway, what I was saying about Insidious 3.
Wow.
Insidious Chapter 3 it's the biggest horror movie of the year. And do you know why I know that?
Because it says it on the box?
Because it's printed on the sticker on the box.
Right now,
so it must be true.
Well, normally you would only read that if it was your blurb. No, it's not. Now, but what is the? Now it says the biggest horror movie of the year. What does biggest mean? Biggest in terms of what?
Biggest in terms
of... It's just a generic...
Biggest in terms of buy this Blu-ray digital HD combo set because we say so. No, let's talk about Avengers: Age of Ultron. Collector's edition. Blu-ray 3D, Blu-ray digital HD combo set. Of course, you can get it in DVD. You can get it in a Blu-ray combo set as well. I don't know why they bother to do Blu-ray 3D, Blu-ray, and digital HD, which, of course, is the Disney Anywhere version of the Disney Movies Anywhere version of this, not Ultraviolet. Disney has their own separate thing, which I actually think is better implemented. Why they don't just throw a DVD in here, I don't know. Everything else is in here. Just throw the DVD in. It doesn't make sense. But anyway, I guess they got to pull their punches somewhere. At least now we're getting copies of this. Nice red, sparkling red keep case, the whole deal with slip cover. Mark, what are your feelings about this? You saw this projected.
I did.
Did you see it in 3D?
No.
Okay.
I can do that.
All right. Well,
please, come on.
Wasn't sure.
I have taste.
You're-
Speaking
you're-
of taste, I have ice cream for you later.
Oh, goody. Yummy. How about some of that stuff we had last week? You have any more of that? Any of that left? I could eat about 1.5 pounds of that.
Really? Did you like it? I couldn't
You know
tell.
what? The aftertaste was after I got over the fact that it tasted like something from my garden.
But I took actual mint
Yeah.
leaves
Yeah.
and I seeped the cream in the mint leaves. For
See, that's why it
20
tasted like
minutes.
the garden, because you didn't just use some mint like.
I didn't use
like-
mint extract.
You
I
didn't use
used
junior
mint.
mints.
No, I used mint.
Interesting.
Mint leaves.
Actual mint leaves.
40 of them. I counted 40 of them. I did. 40 leaves.
That's
But I have
great.
ice cream for you later.
Your thoughts about Avengers: Age of Ultron?
You know, it's not that it's a bad movie, but it motivates the conversation where you think to yourself, I think enough is enough. I
Yeah.
think Marvel has to find something else to. Here's the thing: right after they came out with Avengers,
Yeah.
when everybody was saying that it's just more stuff and more junk and throwing at the screen and just more plot complications and more characters and more special effects and then more is not always better, although this
Yeah.
movie's fine. Right after we were starting to have that conversation about how, like, what is Marvel's long game? If every movie's going to be this gigantic, there's no place else to go. And then they
Yeah.
came out with Ant-Man.
Yeah.
And Ant-Man, at least, is a little more modestly scaled, and it's the movie that Marvel needed at that time. Because after Avengers, people were getting sick of it.
What's going to be the real telltale moment for me is how Doctor Strange does, because
Nobody likes Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is lame.
you see, why do you put me in this box every week? I loved Doctor Strange.
The
That was
worst.
Doctor Strange, far and away my favorite Marvel hero.
The worst.
Far and away,
worst.
because the world of Doctor Strange was always more interesting.
No, he's not.
It was not this, like, with the infinity blah 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 infinity gauntlet crap with the tesseract and all the whole cosmic space going thing. With Doctor Strange, it was the supernatural. It was the occult. It was going into this dimension of witches and demons and this other simultaneous dimension of world and witchcraft and sorcery. That stuff was really, really interesting, and it was interestingly implemented. And his whole deal, his whole origin story is interesting. He sits between two worlds, and that if they're able to make that work, there was a Doctor Strange TV movie like 1980, 81, something like that, which was not bad. I mean, when all these other attempts at doing Marvel stuff for television at the time were just horrible and lame and dreadful. That was the one that really seemed cool, but it was ahead of its time, and nobody really got on board. And so I'm wondering if they stay true. I think Feige is a guy about staying true to the essence of the comics. I think if they can pull that off, it's a bright future.
Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
The only reason why Doctor Strange will do well is because the rest of the Marvel Universe will just pull him along.
Yeah, well, maybe. I think. Look, Benedict Cumberbatch, man, they got the right guy.
You know what? You can't argue about the Cumberbitches and who they love.
Yeah.
So Marvel, whatever, Age of Ultron. I don't know what to tell you. You've all seen it anyway. It's a beautiful Blu-ray. Got a lot of great.
There's
special editions.
45 minutes of additional stuff, including excised scenes, which actually I agree with what some people are saying. They do help make more sense of an otherwise ridiculously overstuffed and convoluted plot that is just loaded with all kinds of inconsistencies and holes and dead ends and like why where'd that go? Why is that even in the movie? And it has been discussed a little bit that this was a troubled development project. And that Joss Whedon did not necessarily get to do everything he wanted to do, and he had to cut some corners, and some things in the script had to go. So naturally, this is going to feel a little bit like an incomplete freeway network. But yes, some of the additional stuff does make a little bit more sense, but it's still over convoluted and overstuffed, and they're going to have to. We got 2 more of these at least, right? The Captain America guys.
Well, the Civil War one, that's a whole nother story. That was a huge deal in
the comics. Yeah,
huge deal. And I have to say that even
but the Russos are giving us 2 of those.
Yeah, I think
There's
the
2 of
Russos
those.
slam dunked Captain America 2. That was a terrific film. That was a good movie. They had the right influences. They were very influenced by
Sure.
the 70s paranoid thrillers.
Yeah.
Which is probably one of the reasons why they wound up coaxing Robert Redford to be in it.
Yeah.
right? It's obviously starring
Sure.
3 Days of the Condor
Sure.
and whatnot.
Sure.
So the Russo brothers, I got to say, I didn't know who they were. They did a bunch of TV stuff. I had no confidence in them. They slam dunked it. They really
Yeah.
did.
No, I agree.
So I think Civil War might be okay. But again, we're starting to grade these on a curve now. I don't want them to be okay for a Marvel film. I want them to be okay for any movie, graded on no curve.
Yeah.
I'm starting to feel like with the Avengers movies, the adrenaline blast of seeing it, and seeing all your colorful characters flying around is exciting in the moment. But when it's over,
Yeah.
it was just much ado about nothing. It was just like this big sugar rush,
Yeah.
and then it's over.
Yeah.
And you don't care anymore. Do you really want to rewatch Age of Ultron? You really want to rewatch it?
Not really.
No,
It's
you really
kind of,
don't. You saw it. Somebody there was an interesting article a couple months ago. I forgot who wrote it. Otherwise, I give them the credit. But they were saying how now, in terms of big blockbuster films, the anticipation is the film.
Yeah.
The next trailer 1, trailer 2. Oh my God, there's a new TV spot.
Yeah.
Oh my God, there's a new spoiler at comicbookhype.com.
Certainly true with Star Wars.
That the actual movie is almost incidental.
Yeah.
The whole idea is getting people in a
build-up.
froth about the build-up of the release of the film.
Yes.
That's where people get excited. The film is almost incidental at this
Yeah.
point.
That's true.
It was an interesting article.
Well, I would concur. Anyway, loads of extras here. The aforementioned deleted and excised scenes, extended scenes, gag reel, a whole bunch of stuff on the Marvel universe and behind the scenes of the thing. It's exhausting. It's almost as exhausting as the movie. But you know what? The best thing here is the Joss Whedon commentary. It's really good. It's really good. He's
a smart guy. Joss Whedon is a smart guy. Not that
he talks a good game.
His sensibility is very specific,
Yeah.
but you know what? He's a very intelligent guy. It can't think of what you want about his movies. They can't be denied. He's a smart guy.
Absolutely true.
By the way, I want ice cream.
You want ice cream?
I do.
Go get some
go
ice cream.
talk about
I'll talk
crap.
about Insidious 3 and a couple other things. So Insidious Chapter 3, another James Wan thing. He produced it this time, and it's directed by Leigh Whannell. So yeah, you're fine. It's more Insidious. Blah blah blah. It's more of the same. Basically the calling it Chapter 3 is weird because this is a prequel. So it's kind of chapter -1, maybe. I don't know. I've never really appreciated this franchise. It just feels like almost all the rest of the things that have kind of emerged, these horror franchises over the past 5 to 10 years. And this one really isn't that. It isn't any different. It just. Normally a ghost movie of this sort that owes a lot to J-horror would probably affect me in some way, but it doesn't. I'm just kind of tired of the whole thing. That being said, if you are a fan of the franchise, you'll probably be fine with this. It's a Blu-ray and an ultraviolet combo set. You get deleted scenes and a few other featurettes and whatnot, and a little origin story on the making of, and that's it. Interesting little low-budget sci-fi thing. Not too low budget. The Anomaly with Brian Cox, Luke Hemsworth, and Ian Somerhalder stars in this thing. This is a bigger budget than you would think it has, but not as big of a budget as it probably should have had. This is basically about a guy who suffers from a weird kind of form of blackout amnesia. He actually comes to. For only like 9 minutes and 47 seconds, and suddenly finds out that he's now an assassin, right? And so it's one of these movies that plays with memory and what really happened. Like, what was the Tom Cruise thing? All You Need Is Kill became Edge of Tomorrow, right? All You Need Is Kill is so much of a better title. Anyway, it's in that same kind of a vein. A little bit of Memento, a little bit of Lathe of Heaven, kind of. It's all these things that play with perception. To some degree, The Matrix does that. So Luke Hemsworth and Brian Cox, both really, really terrific. Noel Clarke is good. It's fine.
Are you done talking about The Anomaly?
Yeah, that's it. Done with The Anomaly. You know what? Here, talk about Navy SEALs versus zombies. I'm going to have some ice cream.
Hang on.
Ah,
I have to explain the ice cream.
okay.
First of all, it's melting.
Yeah.
It is salted caramel ice cream
Oh my gosh, this is really good.
with little chunky things in it.
Good.
Now, it's not a function of making the ice cream. You got to also make the chunky things. So this ice cream, overall, was a pain in the ass to make.
Really?
Because you have to make the chunky things. I won't tell you what the chunky things are made out of because it's very ghetto, but they work in the ice cream.
Soylent Green?
That's like saltines and. Well,
really?
Yes. Well, here's the thing. So I was in New York a few months ago, and there's a ice cream store. Now I tend not to buy ice cream because I make my own. But sometimes there's ice cream stores that I hear are really good. Mm-hmm. So there's one called Ample Hills in Brooklyn. There's a couple of them, but the one I went to is in Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. And so I had some. It was good. And when I came back to L.A., I saw they had a book, a recipe book. So I bought it.
All right.
And now the thing with Ample Hills is that they not only have the ice cream, but they also have, you got to make the mix in, the little chunky things that you got to mix in with the thing. Mm-hmm. So I hadn't made anything from it, and I decided to go for it. I love salted caramel, and I made the salted caramel ice cream. But you got to make the mixy things. Now here's how you make the mixy things.
Okay.
Saltines. Mm-hmm. This is so non-fat. Saltines. 45 saltine crackers. This isn't the ice cream. This is the chunky mix and stuff. Mm-hmm. 45 saltine crackers laid out on a baking sheet. Mm-hmm. Then you take a stick and a half of butter.
Oh my gosh!
And like a cup and a half of sugar.
Holy cow!
And you melt them, mix them, melt them together. Uh-huh. You pour them over the 45 saltine crackers that are laid out onto the baking sheet. You put that in the oven for about 15 minutes, and then you take 12 ounces of chocolate, chop it up into little slivers, and then when you take it out of the oven, where the saltines and the butter and the sugar mixture are all hot and melty, you take the chocolate and you pour it over the saltines and butter and sugar, and then so it becomes like this kind of crack thing. You refrigerate it, chop it up into little bits, and you mix it into the ice cream.
Magnificent.
Oh, did you like that?
Yeah.
Are you now
really good?
Okay, have a second. Whenever you like something, I don't believe you.
Why?
Because here's the thing. You are the king's taster. You need to tell me if something's not good. Otherwise, I don't trust
you know what? You. No, I'll tell you. It's not quite creamy like you normally expect salted caramel to be. Mm-hmm. But it's good. Yeah, it's good. The whole chunky thing. I don't care if it's saltines. I mean, it could be like, bull feces for all I care. It tastes good. Tastes good. All right, talk about Navy. Here, let me kill this off, and then you can do Navy SEALs and zombies. Welgo, who usually does Asian stuff, every once in a while comes out with something that's not. And in this case, it is a movie called The Timber, which was shot in Romania, actually, and takes place during the Yukon Gold Rush in 1898. It's about a couple of brothers who have turned into like. Whatchamacallits, the bounty hunters. I always forget. Are there bounty hunters still, aside from Steve Austin and the Fall Guy?
No, there's the guy who had the show.
Yeah, but
Wolf,
he's
Wolf, the bounty hunter.
Is he a real bounty hunter, or is he just a guy with long hair on a TV show?
I mean, he was a bounty hunter in real life. Yes.
Okay,
he was.
Like the TV. It wasn't just for the TV show.
Well, I'm sure. Well, look, like any reality show, reality is augmented, scripted, put on a production call sheet. That's reality on a reality show. All
right. Well, anyway, and there's a whole kind of father-son deal thing here as well, which is very interesting. Good performances. James Ransone and Josh Peck as the brothers. This every once in a while it's nice to see a Western that's put together in a really interesting way. So anyway, so that's cool to check out. The Timber, Josh Peck and James Ransone from Welgo on a very cool Blu-ray. All right, tell us about Navy SEALs versus Zombies, Mark.
It's a very strange movie. Now check out this cast, Wade. By the way, the movie is about Navy SEALs and zombies. It has Michael Dudikoff. You can pretty much see Michael Dudikoff being in this movie, right? Piece of junk, B-movie crap.
Michael Dudikoff, sure.
You see that, right?
Yeah.
You can see... can you see Rick Fox in this movie? Former Laker Rick Fox?
I sure. Why not?
Now, can you see former Olympian Lolo Jones in this movie?
No.
Well, let me tell you something. Former Olympian Lolo Jones in this movie. Does that make any sense to you?
Not really.
Okay, good. Now, so this thing obviously is just beyond ridiculous, but I have to say, I was all about the zombie thing. I still love the zombie thing. No one can make me stop loving zombie things, but this is just ridiculous. Obviously, it's ridiculous, but the craziest thing.
You know, it'd be
this
awesome
movie,
if there were no zombies in it.
No, the
Or no
craziest,
seals.
the craziest thing about this movie.
Real seals, like sea lions.
The craziest
That
thing
would
about
be
this
great.
movie
Yes.
is that it was directed by a guy. It's his first film, right?
Uh-huh.
Stanton Barrett.
Sure.
Stanton Barrett, for his entire life up until this moment, NASCAR driver.
Nice.
Stanton Barrett,
There you go.
NASCAR Sprint Cup driver, directs a movie. How random is that?
Pretty cool.
Like, imagine if, Phil Mickelson decided to direct a movie.
Yeah.
It'd be like that.
I get you.
Crazy.
I get you.
Anyway, this thing is it's just ridiculous. Can Stanton Barrett direct a movie? Well, his second unit guy can direct a movie. I'm not sure about Stanton Barrett because there's plenty of action in this thing, but this has just got like Sci-Fi Channel written all over it. I'd pass. Anger Bay, you've done a lot better.
Oh. You know who I really, really like? I love Jermaine Clement. He can make anything worth watching. He really can. He's one of those guys who just he's like Bill. He's like, oh, nice one there.
Was it really that loud?
Yeah, it was that loud.
Was it really?
Nice one.
Don't stop recording.
This is what happens when we pollute
We eat
our
too much during the show.
It becomes like a dinner table, knocking over glasses. Oh, I'm gonna go puke. People, places, and things. People, places, things. Jermaine Clement, Regina Hall, Stephanie Allen, Jessica Williams. Jermaine Clement's one of those guys. He's like Bill Murray. You stick him into a role that would otherwise seem to be just or even Christopher Walken or Jeff Goldblum. These guys all have
Jermaine Clement has not done that much, been around that long.
But you know what? Whenever you put him into something, like you remember,
he's been in like four things.
You remember the American remake of The Dinner Game?
Yes.
Okay, which is a just horrific, god awful movie. It's a bad movie.
He was funny in it.
He was the only decent thing in it. He was outrageously funny. He brings everything to life that he's in. But he never really stretches as an actor, at least until this point. But People, Places, Things got a little bit of love from Sundance and the LA Film Festival, and just kind of came and went this year. Released by the Film Arcade and Alchemy on DVD. Is not out on Blu-ray, but just the idea he's just basically playing a dad who can't grow up. He's a graphic novelist, and his wife left him, and he's now trying to deal with being basically a dad who never grew up and raising twin daughters, and trying to figure out who he wants to be when he grows up. And it's just a really sweet, wonderful, loving, interesting movie with a great central performance by Jermaine Clement, who is funny, but he's never trying to sort of own the movie. He's never mugging, right? And it's similar in some respects to what was the Zach what's it?
Garden State.
No, the one he just did recently that they kickstarted for all that money.
It was a sequel to Garden State.
It was quasi sequel to Garden State. What was that thing? What was it called?
Wish You Were Here.
Yeah, that's it. Wish You Were Here. This is the movie that should have been. I mean, no offense to Zach, what's his name, but that movie was ambitious, didn't quite pull it off, but had some nice flourishes. But this has heart. It's a good movie.
Aww.
And then what we did on our holiday is I mentioned this last week when we were talking about Rosamund Pike's unusual career after her Oscar nomination and how she's not really capitalizing on her newfound superstardom.
I know. Who's her agent?
Oh man,
So Head's got a role on that.
I mean, she should be, right up there.
But should she be doing like? Here's the thing: people always say, "Oh my God, she'll do a Marvel film now." Should she really be doing that?
Well, no, but you know what? She should be getting. She should be like up against, Kate Blanchett and Kate Winslet and everyone
if
named
Kate Blanchett wants to do your movie, the conversation's over.
But Rosamund Pike should be at least in the conversation, at least for Nicole Kidman stuff.
Yeah,
you know
I
what
agree.
I'm saying?
Look, I was so happy she got nominated.
Yeah.
I thought that performance would get
on
overlooked.
a certain level. Yeah. I think part of the problem is she's almost too pretty. She has really, really just almost perfect features, which I think some people might think it's just you can't dirty her up enough.
Consider her. She's obviously a very beautiful woman, but I don't consider her pretty in the way that I think you're saying. I think she has sort of like an every woman prettiness.
Yes,
because you can pretty her down.
you can, which they try to do in this movie. But anyway, she's fine in it. It's called What We Did on Our Holiday. Co-stars with David Tennant, who is always fun as well, and the always amazing Billy Connolly, who is one of my all-time heroes. And the idea here is that she and her husband are breaking up, and they drag the kids along to his father's great big 80th birthday party, played by Billy Connolly. He's a former soccer player in this thing, former legendary soccer player. But they don't want to tell him that they're breaking up. So it winds up being this really dysfunctional family vacation. Everybody's showing up to celebrate the birthday of a guy who, and then there's a big twist in the middle of the movie. I won't tell you what happens, but there are a lot of movies like this, Four Weddings at a Funeral, Death at a Funeral, all the movies that are about weddings and funerals. And birthdays and all kinds of family celebrations, and they're almost all British films. They all are about the dysfunctionality and yet the celebration of life that takes place at these big gatherings, and that's fair enough, fine. This is not in the league with those others, but it has a certain sheen that's similar, and it feels wonderful. And you know what? Anything Billy Connolly is in, even if it's not quite up to snuff, he is always amazing in it. And Billy Connolly is just one of the all-time greats, and I'm so sorry he never got the nomination or the Oscar win that I just feel he's so richly deserved, but he just never chased it, Still has a chance. I'm sure there's a part out there somewhere we can still get Billy Connolly that statuette if we go for it, despite the fact that he's got some unfortunate health problems. But love Billy Connolly. Anyway, the movie is What We Did on Our Holiday, and if you can get past the fact that Billy Connolly is the best thing about an otherwise somewhat mediocre movie, and David Tennant and Rosamund Pike aren't quite up to snuff but are perfectly likable, you will enjoy it. It's got a featurette, deleted scenes, audio commentary with the directors, Andy Hamilton and Guy Jenkin. Mark.
Wade, I love post-apocalyptic films as much as anyone. I love them all.
All of them, always,
I really
all the
do.
time?
Well, I'd say yes to that, but I would be contradicting myself when I talk about Air. Air is a film starring Norman Reedus and Jaimin Hunsu, and it's terrible. This is a movie that takes place in the near future. The air has become unbreathable, and so whatever is left of humanity is in suspended animation. And there's these two guys, they're engineers, and their job is to make sure that, mankind doesn't completely fall off the rails and go extinct forever. And I have to say, I would imagine that if you gave this story to, like, Alex Garland, just that super talented writer and now director, and, like a Sunshine era Danny Boyle, there might be something that could be done with this story, but right now it's just really just not very good. It's just the whole thing eventually devolves into guys running around with guns. There's some good special effects in it. I mean, so you see the rows and rows and rows of like humanity and suspended animation tubes. I guess that's pretty cool. But this thing is just, it's promising. I felt like it might have had something to say about humanity and where we're headed and how tough it is to kind of work together as a species and move forward. There's some stuff to say about that this movie somehow winds up avoiding. So I'd pass on it. I would only check out Air only if you just love post-apocalyptic films.
All right, fair enough.
Now, on DVD, there's kind of a silly little nothing of a comedy called Apartment Troubles. This co-stars and was written by and directed by these two real-life friends, Jennifer Prediger and Jesse Weixler.
Okay.
And, this thing is, it's very indie-looking, very low budget. It really depends on the script, and it depends on the chemistry between the two leads, Jennifer and Wes, who are real-life friends. And so there's a couple good, interesting bits here, and we can all relate to what they go through. It's about these roommates, and they're living in Manhattan, this tiny little apartment, and they wind up getting evicted. And so they decide to go to L.A. A lot of that L.A. versus New York humor, we've all heard before. But and there's a reality TV show component in it that I thought was really tired. But if you must, at least you'll enjoy the supporting cast. I don't know how they got these people involved. Jeffrey Tambor's in this, Megan Mullally, Will Forte is a really good supporting cast. So if you like, New York, L.A. comparison movies, and you like, good supporting actors showing up for a couple days' work, you might dig Apartment Troubles, but I was not that much of a fan. Earthfall See, here's the thing with Earthfall, Wade. I couldn't get through this whole thing.
Mic closer to your mouth, please.
Huh?
You got that mic right up there. There we
Okay.
go.
All right,
it's
whatever you say.
directional.
Wow. Oh, it's direct. No, it's omnidirectional.
Well, whatever.
That means I have to be. That means I have to be speaking right into it.
Yes, that's correct. Pointing it to your left does not does not help.
Thank you. Anyway, Earthfall. That's another kind of post-apocalyptic-y thing that I did not like. I didn't really even get through it all because it was lame. There's this planet, and it's a rogue planet, and it's pulling Earth towards it, and Earth's going to bite the dust. Casualties everywhere, things blowing up.
That's just horrible.
Sub B movie special effects. It's unbelievable. Lousy cast, including Joe Lando from Dr. Quinn. I had no idea what happened to that guy. After he did Dr. Quinn, he was kind of like, kind of a bit of the hunk of the time. And now he does crap like this. So, directed by Stephen Daniels with no particular flair, obviously showing its lack of a budget, most of which went into its special effects. Earthfall, I don't know how this stuff gets made. It's just not very good. Sorry, Anchor Bay, we love you, but not this.
All right, let me knock out a couple of documentaries here, and then we can get into all these classic movies, or older movies, catalog titles, library titles, however you want to talk about it. We got three interesting doc titles this week. Adam Carolla in Road Hard, which is actually quite good. Actually, there are a lot of documentaries about stand-up comedy and going back on the road and all this kind of stuff that pop up every once in a while. The woes of being a stand-up comic. A lot of these guys really have nothing to be. There are no woes here. They're making an awful lot of money doing. Oh, I'm so sorry that you have to get on a bus and go into the middle of Tennessee, but you're still doing really well. So we've got Blood and Glory, the Civil War in Color, which is I think this is questionable. I have problems with the idea of this. They've gone and they've gotten a whole bunch of archival photographs from the Civil War, and they've colorized them in ways that they think represents the era, that accurately represent these people. So we suddenly are looking at a color photograph of Abraham Lincoln or a color photograph of Union soldiers and Confederate soldiers fighting. It feels very Ted Turnery to me, and I don't necessarily like the artifice of it, and I have no way of knowing if they've done it accurately, and I don't know that it adds anything, to be honest. I think it's kind of just there's sort of a sensational quality to it. That being said, we also have in the next few weeks the anniversary edition of Ken Burns' The Civil War coming out, and I think this is a History Channel thing that is meant to sort of capitalize on that in sort of a shameless way, so I cannot necessarily recommend this, Blood and Glory, The Civil War in Color. Wait for the Ken Burns doc if you don't already have it. Awake, The Life of Yogananda, is from Alive Mind, which is a subsidiary of Kino Lorber. And if you're not familiar with Yogananda, Yogananda is the guy who came here from India in the 1920s and basically introduced transcendental meditation to America. And that has had all kinds of effects. The Beatles and tons of other people were really, really into some variation of it at some point. David Lynch is a huge proponent of TM, as is Russell Brand, who's in a new documentary that just came out as well. So this has become kind of whether for good or ill, a trendy thing in much in the Western world. Not quite so much in India, but nonetheless, it's this 87-minute documentary on the life of Yogananda called Awake is certainly informative. I don't know if it's a great and thorough documentary, but if you're unfamiliar with this whole scene, it's certainly it provides you more information than you otherwise would have had.
Wade, we have two films about board games.
No,
we have a Jumanji. Well, not really board.
This is these anniversary releases of three films, two of which I actually like, one of which I just cannot abide, but I understand why they're releasing it.
Jumanji with the late Robin Williams. This is the anniversary edition. This movie had some great special effects, and I have to say that it's a pretty scary movie.
You
I
notice,
think part of the thing with the movie when I first saw it is like, God, this is kind of intense. It's like you think it's for kids, but there's a lot of kind of scary stuff in this movie.
But do you see what's going on here, by the way? If I could just interrupt. Mark's about to talk about a trio of movies that have been released in anniversary editions all at the same time, and you think, well, why are they releasing Zathura, Indian in the Cupboard, and Jumanji all in one shot? What on earth is is the idea here for Sony. And the idea is that they're about to open up the new Goosebumps movie, the big-budget theatrical version of Goosebumps, just in time for Halloween, which I saw the trailer for the other day, and the first thought in my mind was, looks like Jumanji. And the idea here is that they want to bring out movies that are similar in some respect to Goosebumps, and all three of these have a big Jumanji or a big Goosebumps plug on them. So they're
similar
and similar packaging. So they're trying to basically grease the wheels for Goosebumps by bringing out these three catalog titles. I mean, that's the idea.
While that is true, Jumanji is a movie. I mean, it's a movie that was very popular for the time.
And it looks like it's better than Goosebumps.
It has it has great special effects. Simple story, but people really enjoyed Jumanji. I enjoyed Jumanji. It's got a good cast. Very young Kirsten Dunst is in this. Bebe Neuwirth is in this. Obviously, as we said, Robin Williams is in this. And so, Jumanji was a cool movie. Bonnie Hunt's in it. So there's a couple special features, all new. There's a couple episodes from the Jumanji animated series, which is terrible. There's a special effects crew commentary, which I thought was kind of interesting. But anyway, so Jumanji, that was definitely a thing. I think much better than Jumanji is Zathura. And this is one of those movies where
this?
I did. You know what?
Oh, my gosh.
I thought to myself, this thing looks like a piece of junk, but you know what? Jon Favreau, he's got a sense of fun and lightheartedness and enchantment that obviously he's kind of lost that now, now that he's Mr. Iron Man. But still, I thought this was much better than I would have expected. Josh Hutcherson is in it. Kristen Stewart is in it. These obviously movies from 2005, I think, so it's much younger. Josh Hutcherson, Dax Shepard, Kristen Stewart, Tim Robbins are in it. It looks great. And it's about this board game, just like Jumanji, but here they get beamed into outer space and have a big adventure. This thing, it's got a kind of a cool, little, amiable sense of humor. And, even the movie, because I did not find Jumanji like an emotional experience. They didn't try to like loop in the enchantment of youth and that kind of stuff, and how it is.
David Alan Grier made Jumanji for me. He is the funniest thing in this movie.
He isn't. But Zathura definitely has the emotional component that Jumanji was missing. So yeah, look, this thing was written by David Koepp, who's very talented and a good director as well. But this was directed by Jon Favreau, who really knocks it out of the park. And it's very early. It's very kind of early Spielbergish, Zathura, I have to say, and I did like it.
All right.
I did like it.
Well, speaking of...
Indian in the Cupboard, that's...
Did you not like Indian in the Cupboard?
Did you?
I did, actually.
Yeah, it's okay.
Directed by Frank Oz, written by Melissa Matheson, the only thing she's written after E.T.
E.T.?
Yeah, it's weird. Kathleen Kennedy, Frank Marshall produced it. I mean, it's got great cred. It just does it. I mean, it's not as great as you would expect it to be from all those people. It's kind of minor, but... it's very sweet. It's based on a popular novel. It's good. It's got more of that Goosebumps crap on it, but this has some featurettes, and it's I think Indian in the Cupboard is kind of an overlooked gem. So take those. I would leave Zathura on the floor and pick up Indian in the Cupboard and Jumanji.
Wade, disagreeing with me.
I am.
You're lame.
Yes, I am. All righty. We've got just a ridiculous gob of classic movie stuff to blow through here. So, hang on. Let's do... Here's what I'm going to do. All right. Pick whichever of those you feel qualified to ramble about. And I'm going to talk for a second about the inevitable, the invariable, the forecasted release, because all Wes Anderson movies must eventually come out on Criterion, of Moonrise Kingdom.
I love this movie so much.
You know what? And we always say that every time a Wes Anderson movie comes out in some format that is not Criterion, everyone says, whoa, is that going to be the first one? It's like, no, just... give it a year.
Well, I had the previous...
Give it a year or two, and then Criterion will be allowed by the studio to come out with their edition, because Wes Anderson insists. That is in his contract. At some point, he wants the movie to have a Criterion edition.
And I have it. You know what? I had the old Moonrise Kingdom, getting rid of it, Criterion all the way.
There you go.
Love this movie so much. Love it.
The studios made their money. Now Criterion can make theirs. And what a wonderful movie this is. I mean, he's on such a roll now with his career. He was sort of off the rails for a little while there with the What's It Express, the Indian thing, and things weren't really working out, and
he's back, man.
He is back. He's really back. I mean, Budapest Hotel was fantastic, but Moonrise Kingdom, so sweet, so wonderful, and gorgeous, gorgeous transfer. And tons of great extras on here. You get storyboard animatics and great audio commentary that involves Wes Anderson, Bill Murray, Edward Norton, Jason Schwartzman, and Roman Coppola. And I credit Roman Coppola, actually, for sort of taming his sensibilities a little bit. I think ever since he started co-writing with Roman Coppola, it's brought out a new element to his creativity. Great booklet here as well with an essay by Jeffrey O'Brien, and it's great. Everything here is great. There's the best thing on all of this, though, is this documentary about the making of the film, which is we all know a little bit about his style and his way of working, but just watching it is just so cool. So that is Moonrise Kingdom, new Criterion Blu-ray edition, Wes Anderson, director approved.
Well, you got a bunch of good stuff here, Wade.
Yeah.
First of all,
Bunch
these
of
are catalog titles.
There's some Paramount stuff there that came out a while back, but we finally got it from Warner Brothers, and I want to make sure that it was on our new site, because these kind of went under the radar. They were these three that you're going to talk about here in a second. They were released without any fanfare, no review, no nothing. It was just because Warner's is releasing a lot of this catalog Paramount stuff now. And they got no fanfare, but I think they need to have some fanfare on this show. So by all means, fire away. Serpico
is is one of the great '70s films, one of the great Pacino performances. Sidney Lumet, who of course is just synonymous with just down and dirty, gritty urban crime sagas. The thing with Lumet is that I revered him. He was never over the top.
No,
never. You felt it was such a street level look at just crime in the big city. And Serpico is one of his best. Al Pacino, one of his best performances, based on a true story about a policeman who blows the cover on some chicanery in his precinct and his fellow cops. So he's gone. He's calling out these dirty cops for who they are, going anti-establishment, and it was great. It's a great film, and it's a terrific Blu-ray. They ported some of these over from previous releases, but at least it's still there. There's this EPK type thing called Reel to Reel, which is pretty good. There's a photo gallery, which is okay, but the photo gallery has a commentary by Sidney Lumet, and it's a great, based on the book by Peter Moss. It's a great film, Serpico, one of the best of the '70s. Got to get it. Also, Flashdance, which I have to say was a huge film at the time, directed by Adrian Lyne. Adrian Lyne was a director who kind of tapped into some weird zeitgeist over his career, Fatal Attraction, and of course Flashdance, and a bunch of other films that he had a moment there, Adrian Lyne. Now he's kind of gone.
He was sort of like an affliction, I think a lot of people really felt they suffered from Lyme disease.
Boogie, boogie.
Yeah.
Boogie. Anyway, what a feeling, man. What a feeling. You got Jennifer Beals, who looks the same today that she did like 30 years ago.
Kind of creepy, right?
It really is. But it's got the great music. It's got the cheesy romance. It's got the leg warmers. It's got the water falling on her on a bucket. It's just fantastic. This is just 80s synth music and cheesy romance. And you know what? It's Simpson and Bruckheimer, and God love them. Screenplay co-written by Joe Esterhaus. This is back in their 90s heyday. This is 1983, but it's back in their early 80s, 90s heyday. And this is great stuff. This is great cheesy stuff. Gotta love Flashdance. Death Wish, there was a bunch of Death Wish movies, and as Canon started to release more and more Death Wish movies, which we'll talk about in a second, people seem to forget that the original Death Wish was from 1974, was a real movie.
Michael Winner.
It was Michael Winner.
Before they did Death Wish 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 10, 14 and a half.
When Cannon snapped up the rights of the Death Wish franchise and just started to crank out crap, and Bronson, for some reason, just was like, okay, I'll do them all, whatever, dude. But the original Death Wish was a good movie. It tapped into, at the time, New York City was a complete cesspool. And we're talking the early to mid 70s. New York was a cesspool, and this movie just taps into that urban panic, that society is just totally crumbling, and it's really good. Death Wish is a real movie, and you guys should definitely check it out. So that's Bronson at his best. From here, we actually, you know what? Here's a good one. Actually, let's pick out the good ones before we go to the bad ones. there was a moment there where
I love this movie.
The Big Picture, funny movie. Christopher Guest directed it. He also co-wrote it along with Michael McKean.
It's like the only non-mockumentary he ever made.
It is, but it
really
still has
good.
a lot to say. In his own way, he's mocking the Hollywood system.
This is one of the best inside Hollywood movie mockery movies ever made. It
really is.
It is so great.
It's Kevin Bacon, so young looking and so funny in it, and no one was funnier than Martin Short in this thing. Martin Short is just hilarious. This is just a great movie. Got a great cast.
Brilliant.
Martin Short, Terry Hatcher, J.T. Walsh, in for Jason Lee.
J.T. Walsh is that studio exec who just in the most passive-aggressive way forces him to change everything in his script is just incredible. I mean, it's because that's exactly how it is. I think, but have you thought maybe it shouldn't take place in Texas? Let me just give you a thought. What about New Guinea? Thought about New Guinea? Not that that's in the movie, but it's that kind of reasoning, you know.
There is so much truth to this movie, and it's so funny. And again, Martin Short just knocks it out of the park with a totally over-the-top performance. I just love this film. The Big Picture, you got to check it out. It's really funny.
Yeah.
What else we have before we go to the bad stuff? Let's see. Let's go to the bad stuff.
All right. Well, let me.
We're not going to the bad stuff.
Before you get to that, you mentioned canon, so let me just make mention of this, since this is in the rundown today. We've got the Bombs, Babes, and Blockbusters of Canon Films 10-pack DVD collection. And you might ask yourself, why on earth would I want that? Because Canon Films is enjoying right now kind of a reassessment. And not a reassessment in which people are nostalgically looking back and thinking, boy, those movies were really so much better than we gave them credit for. It's a reassessment in the sense of, wow, those movies were so bad, but I think I kind of miss them anyway. Like, I miss the awfulness of that period. I miss the relentless Golan Globus cheesiness.
Because all these movies, you think they starred Chuck Norris and you think they starred Jean-Claude Van Damme. Really, the stars of these movies were Golan and Globus.
Yes,
they
true.
were the stars.
Well,
they were the Israeli cousins who were bigger than life, and they just threw money around with little money they had, and they would buy up the rights to these crappy movies and make these low-budget B films, and they all were just ridiculously bad.
In this case, they almost all do star Chuck Norris, with a couple by Stallone, and then Masters of the Universe is in here. Here are the movies: Missing in Action, Invasion USA, Cobra, The Delta Force, Masters of the Universe, Over the Top, the Stallone arm wrestling movie, Bloodsport with Van Damme, which was a movie that put him over the top. I've had some interesting interface with Frank Dukes, not personally, but through many of the same people. And The Hitman with Chuck Norris, which actually is not a bad movie, to be honest. That's maybe the best movie of all of these. Hellbound, another horrendous Chuck Norris movie. And then the new documentary, Electric Boogaloo, The Wild Untold Story of Canon Films, which is sensational. And now you can get that separately. You can get Electric Boogaloo. You don't have to buy this set to get it. You can buy that on its own.
But you have to. Come on.
But you got to get the set
because you
once
need the examples.
That's it. Once you watch this documentary, you're gonna think, oh my gosh, I've got to see these movies now. I've got to see them. And if you buy the box set, well, then you'll have them right there. You'll be like, they did not really do. Are you serious?
The only thing is that once you watch about 15 minutes of any of these films, you'll be like, whoa, boy, these really are as bad as they seemed in the documentary. Because there's actually two documentaries about the Golan Globus boys. There's the Go-Go Boys.
Yes.
And there's Electric Boogaloo.
Yes, which is the better one. This is the better one. This is great.
But don't forget, too, by the way, there was a moment when Canon actually made a couple of decent movies.
Oh, Runaway Train.
I mean, Runaway Train is just a great movie. By any definition, is a great movie.
Yeah. No, they tried to turn the corner in much the same way the Weinsteins did, but I don't think that Menachem and Yoram quite had the. I mean, they just didn't have the know-how. They didn't have the skill. They didn't have the taste that Harvey has. Harvey has impeccable taste. Say what you will about Harvey Weinstein, but the guy knows a great movie and he knows how to market a great movie.
But Golan and Globus, they were businessmen, circus ringmasters, hucksters who happened to make films. Yeah. They were all of that.
Yeah.
You know, frankly, if they've decided to go make open a chain of pizza parlors or anything else, they probably would have been just as successful.
I will never forget those. It's just those first years that I went to the American Film Market and the Cannes Film Festival, and Canon was there with such a vengeance, and At one point, they thought they were going to make a Spider-Man movie, and they'd cast some Major League Baseball player to play Spider-Man. It was nuts. You might want to Google that. It was crazy. And then Cameron claimed he had the rights, and just weird stuff. Anyway,
I'm going to Google that because I don't believe you.
Yeah, Google that. A Major League Baseball player, Spider-Man canon films. You'll be blown away if you can come up with it. A couple of classic films, well, catalog films at least, being released by Sony. Both of them in Blu-ray and ultraviolet combo sets. The first one is Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Francis Coppola film, which is fascinating but deeply flawed. Keanu Reeves is terrible in this film. The rest of the performances are uneven. Anthony Hopkins is fine. Winona Ryder, uneven. Gary Oldman, totally and crazily over the top. But it's such an interesting take, and it's got so many unusual angles to it that it's hard not to recommend it, despite being really uneven. We talked about Roman Coppola and his involvement in Moonrise Kingdom, now as a co-writing writing partner of Wes Anderson. He is also involved in this with his father, and you get an interview with him, and you realize he's there's just no end to the talent in that family. He was the visual effects director on this film and has a lot to say about it. And he's also involved in the commentary. He's interviewed, and then there are deleted scenes and a trailer and tons of other stuff and featurettes. Most of it has been released before. Most of it is familiar. But this is so far the best Blu-ray release of this film. And then here's the more interesting one. John Carpenter's Christine, based on the Stephen King novel. This was previously a Twilight Time release, and everybody was like, "Yay, finally, Christine!" And we talked about this previously. That last week we made mention of this phenomenon where a lot of these companies like Twilight Time and Olive, who are licensing these films, that they are now by virtue of showing how profitable these films can be, when those licenses expire, the studios suddenly then turn around when they receive the license back, and they will release a film that they might otherwise not have thought to do. I think that definitely happened here. Twilight Time did so well with Christine that it prompted Sony to say, maybe we should release our own version of this. And they did. And it's got a commentary with John Carpenter and Keith Gordon, who went on to be a great director in his own right, deleted scenes, and featurettes. Not a ton, but it's a great transfer. It's actually better than the Twilight Time transfer. They put a little bit of effort into this one, and it comes with Ultraviolet, most importantly. Christine, one of the best John Carpenter films. I'd almost say right next to Starman.
Starman would be his best. Escape from New York is second best because I'm partial to that film.
Christine is right in there.
But Christine's right in there.
It's right in there. It's one of the best Stephen King adaptations. It's
but Starman
really
was like that was a departure for him.
Yeah.
Very sincere, love story, got emotional at the end.
I just love deranged car movies. The movie The Car, even as horrible.
I love TheCar.
As horrible as that movie is.
No, that movie's the best. That's James Brolin.
Yeah, but Christine is better.
And then the guy with the French horn he hitchhikes
Christine
at the
is
beginning,
better.
And then he gets his French horn all crushed by the car, and then the car goes off into the ravine, and then it blows up, becomes like the monster flame.
Christine is better.
No, it's not.
Christine is better. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's better.
Sure.
All right. What else you got there, Mark? You had some bad ones?
Well, I'm looking for baseball canon films.
You're not finding it?
Well, I'm finding what Canon was going to do with Spider-Man when they optioned it for 5 years from Marvel. Canon was going to turn Spider-Man, because Golden Globus didn't quite understand what Spider-Man was. They had a commissioned a script whereby Peter Parker gets bitten by a radioactive spider and turns into like this horrible 8-legged, disgusting, horrible, hairy creature. Because the boys didn't understand what Spider-Man was. They thought that that's what it was. And Stan Lee said, "You've got to be kidding me." And then another script was commissioned that was a little more... It was more consistent with what we know about Spider-Man today, but I cannot find anything about a baseball player.
Well, I know that Doc Octopus was originally to have been played by Schwarzenegger at one point in the canon Spider-Man. They were going to have Schwarzenegger play Dr. Octopus.
Lame.
Well, it's interesting.
I heard Bob Hoskins.
Yeah. Anyway.
That would have been good. Anyway, John McTiernan, before he went to jail and was tapping people's phones, he did a film called Nomads, and Nomads stars... Pierce Brosnan, Leslie Ann Down, and it's got a good cast. Is this film any good? It's okay. It's kind of
It's what put him on the map. This is what got him Predator.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
He got him Predator, and then Predator got him Die Hard, and then he was on his way.
Well, the whole idea is that there are these demonic spirits, and they descend on this doctor, a couple doctors, and this other crazy guy, and it's just kind of a weird supernatural chiller movie. It's like it's not sci-fi, it's not poltergeisty. It's from 1986, and I didn't really think much of this movie. 20-year anniversary Blu-ray edition of Hackers. This is with Johnny Lee Miller and Angelina Jolie.
Oh, this is terrible. This is only because that's the movie that they met on, and then they wound up marrying for 14 minutes. And
yes, they did.
Yeah.
Yes, they did. Anyway, so this is one of the early films about computer hacking. It's like a big thing then. Oh my
You remember
God.
The Net with Sandra Bullock?
Yeah. That was terrible.
Have you watched that again recently?
No, why would I do that?
Nothing about it makes any sense.
You know what it
it's
is?
It's so funny.
When all this stuff comes out and becomes like the new hip thing, producer. I remember when Chris Evans starred in that film Cellular. Like
that's the
somebody came out with
worst. Yeah.
you know that new thing called cell phones? Let's do a thing where like the guy's on the run and his only communication with the world is through his cell phone and the battery's running out. You did that movie today, people would just laugh. Anyway, yes, Hackers is a cheesy movie. Fisher Stevens is in it too, along with Lorraine Bracco from Goodfellas. Only notable for Mr. and Mrs. Lee Miller.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I have a little bit of a soft spot for Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man,
It's the stupidest
directed by
idea
Simon
for-
Windsor.
Oh, it's such a dumb idea for a movie. It really is. I mean,
I love
I get it. The only way that this makes sense is someone walks in, we'll make a movie about Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man, right? We turn them into characters, and that sounds stupid until you go with Mickey Rourke and Don Johnson.
Damn right.
And then suddenly, I think everyone in the room just erupts and takes a hit of cocaine, and suddenly that movie gets made somehow.
You know what? I have a bit of a soft spot for it. Yes, it's about a bar that's going to be closed down, and so Mickey Rourke and Don Johnson have a plan to save the bar, mainly rob a bank. And so it all starts from there. Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man. Ask your parents. Robot Jocks. This was a Stuart Gordon film.
Oh my gosh.
And the thing with Stuart Gordon is that he's kind of a cult director.
He's a
Reanimator.
really bright
He's
guy.
a bright
by the
guy,
way.
but I didn't know what to make of Robot Jocks. It just seemed really lame. It takes place in the future, and war's been outlawed, and so if you have a dispute with another country, it's settled in this winner-take-all fight between machines. You know what? It's a little bit like this is like the baby version of Pacific Rim. You ever see Pacific Rim?
Yeah. No, I like Pacific Rim, but I get what you're saying. This is yeah.
So I don't know what to make of this film. It was low budget, and it didn't have that cult feel. It had more of a low budget feel than a cult feel. So I was kind of disappointed by it. But some people kind of like this movie, Robot Jocks. Finally, just for the hell of it, we'll just tell you that there's a double feature Blu-ray out, double feature of Easy Money and Men at Work. I love Easy Money. This is not Rodney. I mean, I love Rodney Dangerfield. Easy Money, hardly his best film. I do like the Billy Joel song at the end. Yeah. And the Men at Work was at a time when Charlie Sheen and Emilio Estevez were like the young, countercultural, cool kids doing the crazy comedies. But this one really...
Good friend of mine who actually hired me. She actually hired me for my first job working as an usher at the Man's National. She was an assistant manager at the time. And she was, we bonded over the fact that I'd gone to school with Charlie, and she was close friends with Emilio. And let me see if her name is here, because she's actually a producer on this film. Oh, the credits aren't here on the back, are they? Okay. Well, anyway, she was a producer on the film. So shout out to you. Love you, Barbara. I'm still thrilled that you got to work with them on this film. But I'll tell you, Easy Money. I love Easy Money. I love that. Oh, I love it. I love it. You know why I love it? I love it because it pairs two actors that you would never have otherwise thought to pair, but they are so great together on screen. And I'm shocked that nobody continued to say, wow, Rodney Dangerfield and Joe Pesci. We could milk that forever. I mean, that was an
Twins. Rodney Dangerfield starring in Twins.
Oh my gosh! When they're in the we're browsing. Oh, we're just browsing. Oh, that whole bit browsing in the men's department.
I just want to hear Rodney do his stand-up.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's just so much fun.
Here's my Rodney Dangerfield joke of the day. You ready? This Rodney had this funny line. This is in his stand-up. I just happened to remember it.
Yeah.
He says, "Yo, I was so ugly. In fact, I was so ugly that when I was born, the doctor slapped my mother." Love Rodney.
I like that.
I used to work with Rodney's daughter.
Did you really?
Rodney's daughter was a booker on the Roseanne show.
Really?
For a season, yeah. And then she missed New York and went back to New York. Melanie. Her name was Melanie.
Wow.
She's just as neurotic as you would imagine.
I can imagine.
Yes.
We got a bunch. I'm going to class up the joint right now. So, the Epic of Everest, I think, was probably timed to be to go along with the current tentpole film Everest, which has not done all that well, which is rather sad to me because a friend of mine was a producer on that as well. But it's a good movie, by the way. Everest, you see Everest?
I passed on the screening.
Did you really? It's good, man.
Really?
I don't know. It's just not. I think it's the late summer blues. People aren't going to see it, but. I hope it picks up on DVD and Blu-ray when it comes out because it's good. It's really, really well done. But anyway, this was meant to sort of tie into that. The Epic of Everest from Kino Classics from 1924, an amazing silent film that is just absolutely sensational, beautifully restored here, directed by Captain John Knoll. And this is essentially the story of the. I mean, this is the deal from the 1924 expedition that resulted in George Mallory and Andrew Irvine dying, and there was a huge question after that as to whether they actually got to the top. And this is the film that was shot over the course of that effort. And it's just amazing. I mean, you look at this and you realize that you could not do this film today with digital cameras because the conditions would freeze up all the electronics in the cameras. You need mechanical cameras that can work in these unbelievably cold environments. If you were to take any of these really hypersensitive electronic, Sony or Red or whatever else, as soon as you get a third of the way up Everest, those things will just implode. Nothing will work. So there's something to be said about old-fashioned mechanical cameras that can go into these inclement conditions all over the globe, the extreme heats and colds and underwater and just keep working because they're mechanical and they're amazing. And this is an extraordinary film, beautifully restored on Blu-ray, great score. Just fantastic, absolutely fantastic. A little bit of color tinting in it as well, which is cool. And as long as we're on the subject of classic films, Flicker Alley. Got to always give a shout out to Flicker Alley when they come out with something new. They now have masterworks of avant-garde experimental cinema from 1920 to 1970. They continue to release these things. This is a multi-disc Blu-ray set that contains somewhere in the neighborhood of about 5 hours, 6 hours worth of material. If you don't like avant-garde experimental films, you're not going to care about it. But this is there's like 36 movies here that are just mind-blowing, off-the-wall, weird, cool, beautiful, eccentric, and yet there's somehow this cool nostalgic beauty to them. And even if I wouldn't have liked these movies if they were made now, the fact that they were made during previous eras, from the silent right up to 1970, kind of feels like you're on board with this amazing cinematic journey. It's really quite cool. So highly, highly recommended is Masterworks of American Avant-Garde Experimental Film, 1920 to 1970. It is like an alternate history of American film and a must-have for anybody who really appreciates that kind of stuff. And then we got a couple other criterions here that should be mentioned. Kind of minor, but important nonetheless, is the Blu-ray debut of the 1969 film The Honeymoon Killers. The Honeymoon Killers is significant because it is one of the weirdest true stories you could possibly imagine. And it's kind of gone, it's sort of faded under the into the background of film history a little bit, but it features really amazing performances by Shirley Stoller and Tony LaBianco in this weird, horrible story of this con man and this just horror. I mean, what actually happens here is just dreadful. It's really dreadful, and there's no way to sort of do justice to it without describing the story. And I don't want to give anything away if you haven't seen it, but you need to see this. 4K digital transfer and restoration. Love Letters, which is a new interview program by Robert Fisher that includes Tony LoBianco and Marilyn Criss and the film's editor. And then there's a video essay called Dear Martha, written by Scott Christensen, who previously wrote Condemned Inside the Sing Sing Death House. And really great movie, fascinating story, very disturbing, well worth checking out. Because it's Criterion, you should own it, but at the very least, rent it. The other Criterion this week thrills me to no end. It is A Room with a View, the James Ivory film that started the whole train, the Merchant Ivory train, as far as American audiences were concerned. They'd done a lot of stuff prior to this, but this was the thing that kind of launched it, right? You did this, and then you had Howard's End and Remains of the Day, and then they got their Disney deal and blew that with Jefferson in Paris, and but they became a big deal with this film. This was an independent smash. Do you remember Room with a View?
Of course, they all Merchant Ivory. They were like they were synonymous with quality.
Well, doing that whole E.M. Forster British thing, right?
Sure.
It was they had their brand for a moment there in the 1980s. And it was a great run. I mean, it was a run of about 10 years. It sort of started with Mr. and Mrs. Bridge, with Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward, but it sort of, and the Bostonians. I guess you could go back to the Bostonians, but this is really when they started getting Oscar nominations. They just started killing it at the Academy Awards, and never really won any, but they got a lot of nominations. Gorgeous film adapted from the M. Forster novel. Largely remembered by many people because of the scene in which Julian Sands runs around naked. This is before he made Gothic and embarrassed himself and everyone else. And frankly, boxing Helena. He kind of became a weird dude after this, didn't he?
Well, boxing Helena will do that to you.
Yeah, it sure will. But a lot of great stuff on here. The new interviews with James Ivory and Tony Pierce Roberts, the cinematographer, John Bright, who did the costumes, Helena Bonham Carter, Simon Callow, Julian Sands, a lot of great stuff. And there's a 1987 episode from the NBC Nightly News talking about Merchant Ivory Productions, which is really, really fun. And then the last little weird thing that I'm going to mention here, and then we'll... what are we going to do? Let me see if we're going to... Is this it? You know what? That television, that can wait till next week. We'll do the television next week. Mark?
Yes.
Are you familiar with The American Dreamer?
I am not.
You're not? I wasn't either. This is unbelievably strange. So here's the thing. After Dennis Hopper made Easy Rider, a lot of weird stuff happened in Hopper's life and his career, some of which we know about, a lot of stuff we don't know about necessarily. But, before Easy Rider, Dennis Hopper was just a clean-cut, up-and-coming Hollywood actor, right? Like he was in Giant. Remember in Giant?
Sure, clean cut, yeah.
Clean cut, good-looking kid. He's like, and then he becomes kind of this counterculture figure. And... suddenly he's consumed after Easy Rider with all kinds of really amazing offers. He followed up Easy Rider with the last movie, which nobody has seen. And it's this weird semi-experimental thing about nobody actually saw it. And he was supposed to be the next generation of American filmmaking. He was supposed to be the new Orson Welles, and he just went off the deep end, right? And made a horrible, disastrous movie that nobody saw. And suddenly he was almost like begging for work. And The American Dreamer is essentially this look into his whole mindset, his process during this particular period in time. And it's fascinating, and it's disturbing, and it's extremely illuminating about a particular point in time and a particular mindset, a particular milieu in Hollywood. It's just, and this thing has almost been non-existent for the longest time. But this is a fascinating documentary from a time when documentaries like this just weren't being made. These behind-the-scenes, look inside the artist and the filmmaking process and all this. So this was made in 1971 and by a couple of filmmakers named Lawrence Schiller and L.M. Kit Carson, two people I'm unfamiliar with their with anything else they've done. But what a wild and weird and woolly document of an amazing talent, just completely in the throes of mania. Dennis Hopper and The American Dreamer, really an unbelievably cool and intriguing film.
Yeah.
That's it. So let's see. Are we? Let's see. Hold on. You know what? Let me real quickly. Let me just go through these over here, and then we will call it. We've got a bunch of this stuff from the Kino Lorber Classics line, Studio Classics line. They keep coming out with these just fast and furious. So here is the stuff that's out this week. Lee Van Cleef and Stuart Whitman and Carol Baker in Captain Apache, which is a 1971 late-era Western, right before Westerns fell out of favor once again. This thing's not great, but it's if you're a Lee Van Cleef fan and you'd rather not watch,
I love Lee Van Cleef.
Escape from New
Escape
York.
from New York.
Then
And spaghetti westerns.
Another Lee Van Cleef film with James Mason, Gina Lollobrigida, and Gianni Garco, I guess is how you pronounce it. This was from 1971 as well. It's called Bad Man's River. It's a little bit better, mainly because of Gina Lollobrigida, who, frankly, I would watch if she were just standing in line at the supermarket. So that I can recommend strictly for Gina Lollobrigida. Another Blu-ray of Burnt Offerings, which has kind of vanished from the scene. This was a Dan Curtis movie back when Dan Curtis was emerging, segueing out of the Dark Shadows thing and his television Dracula and Frankenstein productions and trying to do something a little bit more legit as far as feature films are concerned.
I like this movie. Oliver Reed.
It's okay. Oliver Reed's good. Burgess Meredith is good. Bette Davis shows up and is a little bit embarrassing, but it's all right. It's It's all right. It has a certain 70s post-Rosemary's Baby sheen to it, so I can dig with it. Scissors is a kind of a mediocre film from 1996 with Sharon Stone and Steve Railsback, which it's not really worth checking out unless you're a Sharon Stone completist, which I am not. The Wonderful Country with Robert Mitchum and Julie London is another so-so Western from the a period when Westerns were sort of a little bit too ubiquitous. 1959, there were 20 or 30 Westerns being made every year, and most of them were incredibly mediocre. This is directed by Robert Parrish, who did a ton of these films, and it's not great. It's all these people have done better work. So only if you're a fan of the actors. And then the last two, which are strictly on DVD, not on Blu-ray, because I suppose that there is a Twilight Time Blu-ray release in the offing for either of these. One is Support Your Local Sheriff, which is a partner film with Support Your Local Gunfighter with Harry Morgan and Jack Elam, directed by Burt Kennedy. Enjoyable, not brilliant. And then lastly, Support Your Local Gunfighter, also directed by Burt Kennedy, James Garner, Suzanne Pleshette. This is the better movie of the two, but only because James Garner is awesome and Suzanne Pleshette has the voice that just makes me swoon. So that's it for this week's show. Mark?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any parting recipes that you would recommend to the listeners? Ice cream.
You mean like just
tart,
name all the ingredients,
something?
the amounts?
No, just something that they should eat this week.
They should eat ice cream. Ice cream's good for you. It's good for your soul. It makes you happy.
We're done.